Hello and welcome to ACT Reading for Owls, video number 6. In this video here today, we're going to be reading a practice passage, answering some practice questions. I'm going to leave you with a big tip for completing the ACT reading section successfully, and I'm going to share with you what the next week is going to look like. The passage today is a humanities style passage, and this is adapted from The Quiet Sidemen by Colin Fleming. In just a moment, I'm going to screen share the passage and the questions, but if you want, you can find a PDF of all of this in using the link in the description below. The practice exam linked below does have 4 passages. Remember, there's 4 different styles. This one is the 3rd passage in that PDF. We did the first 2 in the last 2 videos that we did, numbers 4 and 5, and we'll do the last passage, the 4th passage, next time. I'm going to begin by surveying the questions and then reading this passage out loud. If you want, you can fast forward this video when I begin reading if you'd rather read this passage on your own. And as always, a note on timing. The time that we take to do this together is going to be longer than what you would take for a passage like this on the real ACT, because we're going to be pausing and talking about this, discussing it. And obviously that doesn't happen when you take a real ACT. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin by surveying the questions so that we have some heads up for what to look out for. Based on the passage, how did Barry's personality affect his career? Okay, so what kind of guy is he? Number 22, the author mentions Barry's solo in Oh Lady Be Good, primarily in order to, so what's the purpose of that? The author points out that many serious jazz enthusiasts knew little about Barry, primarily in order to, so again, some purpose there. According to the author, Barry's solos as a recording session musician were often very short because, so why doesn't he record for very long? We'll be on the lookout for that. The author indicates that during Barry's time as a musician, swing music was primarily regarded as it's used in line 35, the word court most nearly means to. In the 7th paragraph, the author compares sidemen to traveling salesmen, so we'll be on the lookout for that. The author describes Henderson's blues in C-sharp minor. That's the 2nd time that a specific question has been invoked, so maybe we'll have our eyes open for specific songs. 29, according to the author, what is unique about the June 1940 rendition of the song A Ghost of a Chance, another specific song there. And finally, the author uses the phrase, a cathedral of a solo, most likely to create a sense that Barry's solo was, so describing what kind of solo that is. All right. At this point, I'm going to begin reading this passage out loud. You can fast forward if you would rather read this on your own. Near the end of his 8 years as a recording session musician, tenor saxophonist Leon Chu Barry landed a short-lived spot with Count Basie's orchestra. Standing in for one of the Basie band's 2 tenor giants, Barry took a lead solo on Oh Lady Be Good, the 1924 Gershwin song that Basie had played for years. I remember that song being mentioned in a question. In the 28 seconds that the solo lasted on February 4th, 1939, we are treated to no less than the musical personification of mind and body working together in divine tandem. When you hear the recording for the first time, you're likely to wonder why you've never heard of Chu Barry before. Why you've never heard of him is pretty simple. A lot of hardcore jazz buffs don't know much about him. Barry was a solid session player who turns up on recordings with Basie, Bessie Smith, Fletcher Henderson, and Billie Holiday. But he did not cut many sessions himself as a leader, and when he soloed, he worked within the recording constraints of the era and the swing genre, fast-moving 78s with solos often lasting for a mere 32 beats. There were a couple questions that invoked why he doesn't record a whole lot, and also comparing it to swing. I do remember seeing both of those in the questions. The people who loved Barry were, not surprisingly, other tenor players, a situation leading to the dreaded musician's musician tag. But that's not nearly praise enough to describe Chu Barry, who, when given opportunity, displayed a musical dexterity that would be envied by future generations of hornmen. Barry faced the lot of other horn players, having to grind it out long and hard until something memorable burst through. The prejudices and expectations of the listening public, and the accepted wisdom of what is and isn't art in a given medium. In this case, swing was fodder for dance parties, not music worthy of study. Again, there's another mention of swing. Oddly enough, Barry's geniality might help explain his failure to court history's favor. It wasn't in his nature to call attention to himself or his playing. I think one of the questions asked about what the word court means. Born in 1908 into the Black middle class in Wheeling, West Virginia, the laid-back, affable Barry attended West Virginia State in Charleston, where he switched from alto sax to tenor and exhibited the willingness to fit in that characterized his presence in so many dance bands. There are some mentions of his personality, what he's like, and question number 21 right there. Ooh, I want to go over and answer it, but I'm going to wait. He was the rare artist who refused to put his interests above those of the band, even if that meant playing ensemble passages rather than taking a healthy allotment of solo breaks. College proved a training ground for Barry the Bandsman as he teamed up with a number of amateur outfits. He never played simply to show off. Instead, he tried to bring out the positive attributes in any given situation or setting. Later, when Barry is performing with the Callaway Ensemble, we hear some ragged, out-of-tune playing until Barry's first few solo notes emerge. The other players, no longer languidly blowing through their charts, immediately surge up behind him, all fighting fit. Once Barry finishes his solo, the shenanigans resume. After making his way to New York, Barry immediately became a presence and soon was in demand. The great jazz orchestras of the swing era were fronted by musical directors/arrangers. Duke Ellington was preeminent, who drew the acclaim. The sidemen were musical traveling salesmen who sold someone else's wares in the best style they could manage. I remember traveling salesmen being the subject of a question too. It was with Fletcher Henderson that Barry began to ditch some of the sidemen's subservient trappings. For starters, Henderson wrote in keys that were rare for the jazz orchestras of the day, and his somber, indigo-inflected voicings were ideal for a player of Barry's introspective approach to his instrument. Barry sounds as if he's being swallowed by his sax. Blues in C-sharp minor, for instance, is odd, haunting, and ultimately relaxing. That title was also the subject of a question, if you remember. A Barry solo in it is slightly off mic, making the listener feel as though he's been playing for some time before we finally hear him. The effect is unnerving, as if we weren't paying close attention. In June 1940, Cab Calloway granted Barry a showcase piece, A Ghost of a Chance, the sole recording in Barry's career to feature him from start to finish. It was his body and soul, a response to Coleman Hawkins's famous recording, intended not as a riposte to a rival, but as the other half of a dialogue. Its rubato lines are disembodied from the music meant to accompany it, which is Spartan to begin with, Spartan meaning sparse. This may be Barry's one and only instance of indulgence on a record, a cathedral of a solo, you remember that phrase, in its flourishes, angles, ornamentations, reflexivity. If sunlight could pass through music, A Ghost of a Chance would funnel it out in the broadest spectrum of colors. What a beautiful passage. All right. Switching back over here real fast. I'm going to now read each question out loud and model how I would answer it. I will provide an opportunity for you to pause and try to find the answer yourself, though, before I reveal what the answer to each question is. I would recommend having scrap paper to write down your answers or to take notes that might be helpful for you as we do this. And answers, just in case you miss one or would like to skip ahead, are also listed on the next slide. Number 21. Based on the passage, how did Barry's personality affect his career? Pause this video, take a moment, and see if you can't find the right answer. All right. The correct answer for number 21 is C. His modest and easygoing personality kept him out of the spotlight and, consequently, he received less attention as a performer. I would look over here at this paragraph. Oddly enough, Barry's geniality might help explain his failure to court history's favor. He didn't want a lot of attention on himself. Let's see. He was laid back. He was affable. So he's kind of friendly. He's easygoing. C is going to be the best answer there. And number 21, by the way, is a key ideas and details style of question. Moving on to 22. The author mentions Barry's solo in Oh, Lady Be Good, primarily in order to pause this video, take a moment and see if you can find the answer. I'm going to scroll back up there real fast to Oh, Lady Be Good so that you can see what that is. Here we go. All right, the correct answer for 22 is going to be G, provide an example of Barry's musical excellence. When the author describes this song, the author really makes Chu Barry seem like just a fantastic musical artist. We're treated to no less than the musical personification of mind and body working together in divine tandem, making it seem sort of godlike or God-given, touched by God in a sense. Number 22, by the way, is a craft and structure style question. Moving on now to number 23, the author points out that many serious jazz enthusiasts knew little about Barry primarily in order to take a moment and see if you can't find the answer. The answer to number 23 is D. Explain why it's likely that readers would be unfamiliar with Barry. This is intended by the author to not exactly give the reader an excuse, but like to explain why we've never heard of this person. Like even people who really know about jazz haven't really heard of him. So it's understandable why us, the reader, sort of a lay audience perhaps, would also not have heard of him. And 23, by the way, is another craft and structure question. Number 24. According to the author, Barry's solos as a recording session musician were often very short because he, take a moment and see if you can find an answer. All right, the answer to 24 is H, worked within the recording constraints of the era. And I think I remember reading that exact quote somewhere up here. Yeah, when he soloed, he worked within the recording constraints of the era and the swing genre. So again, if you're reading closely the first time that you go through this, if you really pay attention, have your brain turned all the way up, you might sort of get lucky and realize that you know the answer to a question without having to go up and look very closely or spend a whole lot of time. Ideally, really good reading comprehension is going to pay off when you answer these questions. Number 25. The author indicates that during Barry's time as a musician, swing music was primarily regarded as, pause this and see if you can find an answer. The answer to number 25 is D, music for dance parties, but not music for study. And if we come back up here to the second time that swing music is mentioned, let's see, in this case, swing was fodder for dance parties, not music worthy of study. So again, if you're paying really close attention, reading really carefully the first time, questions like that should be pretty easy for you to answer and they shouldn't take you a whole lot of time. And 25, by the way, is a key ideas and details question, just like number 24 was, in case I didn't mention that. Number 26, as it is used in line 35, the word court most nearly means to, I might be able to fit both of those onto the screen. There we go. All right, pause this, take a moment and see if you can't find an answer. The answer to number 26 is F, seek to attract. Oddly enough, Barry's geniality might help explain his failure to attract history's favor, to really make himself known in history. It wasn't in his nature to call attention to himself or his playing. That definition right there for F really fits. I could sort of switch out seek to attract with court, and it would make a lot of sense. Number 26, by the way, is a craft and structure question. Number 27. In the 7th paragraph, the author compares sidemen to traveling salesmen in order to, let's scroll back up and take a look real fast. Remember that when the questions refer to a line, it's smart to begin reading before that line in question so that you have some context for where you might be going. So let's see, after making his way to New York, Barry immediately became a presence and was in demand. The great jazz orchestras are fronted by famous people who drew a lot of acclaim or attention. The sidemen were musical traveling salesmen who sold someone else's wares in the best style they could manage. And then down here, they're sort of called subservient. So take a moment, pause this, and see if you can't find an answer to number 27. Okay, the answer to number 27 is C, illustrate sidemen's supportive role in a band. They're not the people in the spotlight. They support others who are a lot more acclaimed, a lot more famous. So C is going to be the best answer there. And 27, by the way, is a key ideas and details question. Number 28, the author describes Henderson's blues in C sharp minor as, I remember reading that. There you go, blues in C sharp minor right there. It's odd, haunting, ultimately relaxing. A Barry solo and it's slightly off mic, making the listener feel as though he's been playing for some time before we finally hear him. The effect is unnerving, as if we're not paying attention. So pause this, take a moment and see if you can't find an answer. All right. The correct answer here was hopefully pretty easy for you because I read it. It's J, odd, haunting, and relaxing. And again, if you're reading really closely the first time through, ideally details like that are going to stick in your brain, especially because you literally just read it a few minutes ago. And so hopefully questions like that are pretty quick for you. 28, by the way, is a key ideas and details question. 29. According to the author, what is unique about the June 1940 rendition of the song A Ghost of a Chance? Let's go see. I think that was at the end. Yeah, Ghost of a Chance, the sole recording in Barry's career to feature him from start to finish, because he's mostly just a sideman, right? But here he is finally taking front and center stage. And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful song according to this. Pause this and see if you can find an answer for number 29. The correct answer to 29 is A. It's the only recorded piece that features Barry from beginning to end. And the text up there said pretty much that, just about word for word. And 29, by the way, is a key ideas and details question. And finally, number 30. The author uses the phrase a cathedral of a solo, line 85, most likely to create a sense that Barry's solo was. Let's see. There's line 85, but of course we're not going to start there. We're going to start a little bit before that. So let's see, Ghost of a Chance, talking about how beautiful it is. A cathedral of a solo in its flourishes and angles, ornamentations, reflexivity. If sunlight could pass through music, a ghost of a chance would funnel it out in the broadest spectrum of colors. Pause this video and see if you can't find an answer. All right, the correct answer for number 30 is F, an intricate, awe-inspiring masterpiece. Think of a cathedral. A cathedral is going to be intricate. It's going to be soaring. It's going to be awe-inspiring. It's something that you just are filled with this sort of amazement if you get to see it and experience it. And F is going to be the best answer there for that reason. And that is a craft and structure question. Now that we're finished with that, here are the answers, just in case you missed one. Note that there are 6 key ideas and details questions, and there are 4 craft and structure. There are 0 integration of knowledge and ideas questions in this passage. I think last week we had like 18 of them or something. Like there were so many of them, and that's kind of how it goes. There are very few integration of knowledge and ideas questions, and they tend to come in pairs. When you see one, you're likely to then see another one perhaps, but key ideas and details are far and away the most common. And those really do test close reading comprehension. Craft and structure is more like, how is a passage put together? Why does the author make choices to include certain details and illustrate certain things? If you need to see the screen, pause it. Otherwise, we're going to go and move on. All right, here's your 4th big tip. This is adapted from fiveable.me. And this is about questions that really invoke vocabulary, kind of like number 26 that we just did. Number 26, I think courted was the word. Yeah, the word court most nearly means to. As just a quick note, perhaps while we're over here too, it says most nearly. So you're looking for the best answer here, not necessarily the singular one right, but the answer that's the most correct. Being aware of tricky phrasing like that is a really key thing for the ACT. So flipping back here, identification, the 2 types of questions here are in context and then reading and context. In context questions present you with a line number, kind of like number 26 did, and you're going to be asked to use context clues to find out what the specified word means. Then you have reading and context. These questions often ask you to choose the answer choice, the vocabulary word that best represents a certain section of the passage. Using context clues is the biggest strategy that you can have in your corner for these kinds of questions. If the question asks you about a word that's in line 40, don't start reading right at 40. Start reading at the beginning of the paragraph that line 40 is located in, and then read a little bit past it as well. This is context. I think that I said, we want to get the context when we went back and modeled getting that answer. I think that we might have used that exact same word. Watch out for words with multiple definitions too. Often words that are tested here, especially in context questions, are words that have multiple meanings. So figuring out the meaning in this specific situation and this specific usage is going to be what you're looking for. Make sure you don't choose a definition just because it's the common definition. You've got to use context clues to answer these questions, not just prior knowledge. For example, court could also mean like to romantically pursue, like to court somebody, and courtship, that's obviously got romantic designations, but nowhere in this passage is romance featured. And so obviously G is not going to be the right answer because of the context of the word in this passage. Finally, elimination. The elimination strategy is especially useful with vocab because if you know that a definition does not fit, then you can immediately cross that answer off and you don't have to waste any more time on it. Then you're going to have a higher chance of getting the question right and finding the word and then the meaning, the definition that is going to fit. So next time, the video is going to feature passage number 4, the very last one in that practice exam that we've been working through now for 3 weeks. Passage number 4 is all about natural science, and the title of it is going to be Warp Factor. It's by Charles Liu. We're going to read the passage together and practice answering the questions just like we did this week. There is no need to do anything at all outside of AI time to prepare. Just come willing to work and learn. You're going to continue to learn tips, tricks, and strategies for accurately answering questions. And of course, you're getting more practice, which is really the best thing that you can do to prepare for this part of the ACT. Thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.